Hey guys, it's Reese, and today I'm doing one of the most requested videos I have at the moment, which is basically how to study for finals. Finals is coming up and has even started for a lot of people. I've been getting cries of help from a bunch of people. Everyone is stressed about this time. I get it. I'm in college. I just took some finals too. So I'm going to give you some of my favorite studying tips and things that work for me, and I'm also going to give you just more general basic studying tips that help with really any sort of test taking. But of course, we're focusing on finals because they're important. Alright, so if you guys are ready, then let's get started. So of course you need to know what type of information is going to be on the final, but before that you need to know how the final is going to be set up. The way the final is set up is really going to determine how you study, and what I mean by that is it in an essay format, or you're going to have to do multiple choice, or you're going to have to fill in the blank. So if you have to write an essay for your final, you're going to need to review more big concept items instead of specifically remembering definitions and vocabulary, because you want your essay to include all the concepts that need to be answered, all the questions that need to be answered, and you need to make sure it flows together and makes sense. Of course, you need to still know some details so that you can provide specific information into your essay, but you're more worried about the big picture and understanding the concept that you learned during the semester. With multiple choice, this is where you're going to need to remember a little bit more specific details about the items that you learned, maybe some definitions and vocabulary, so that you can identify the right answer out of the multiple choices. And with fill in the blank, you're really going to need to remember specific definitions because you don't have any other reference beside what you know. So if you have to fill in the blank of a definition or a vocab word, or like, what does this concept mean? You have to get the exact answer right for you to get full credit. So of course you need to know what's on the final, but you also need to know how it's set up to figure out how hard or how you need to study specifically. So hopefully your professor gives you a study guide for the final, or at least an outline of what's going to be on it, because if not, that's actually evil. But I've never had a final where I didn't have an outline or a study guide for it. So usually I look at that, look at all the concepts, how it's going to be set up and stuff like that, and I go over each thing that's on it and see how much I already know about what is on the study guide. So basically what I'm trying to say is, say you studied 10 chapters over the semester and you're going to be tested on information from all 10 chapters. Usually they give you a little outline of the concepts in each chapter that you're going to have to review, and I like to go through and say, like, okay, chapter 1. Oh, I know this pretty well. I can already think of what the answer is going to be. Maybe I just need to brush up a little bit on it, but I'm not going to spend as much time on chapter 1 as I am maybe chapter 2, because I look at the study guide and I'm like, I don't really remember that. I kind of remember like listening about it, being taught it, but I don't remember it specifically off the top of my head. So go through each section, figure out what you know pretty well, because you don't want to be spending the same amount of time on things you know well as you don't know very well. After you go over all the concepts, see if there's any specific vocab words you're going to need to know. Usually for each chapter they'll give you a list of vocab words, or just like a big list of vocab words you might need to know. So make sure you fill them all out, maybe make flashcards for them, and just make sure you memorize the vocab words, because you're going to need to know them. It's kind of hard to like talk about this because I don't know how much information you're going to be given about the final. So if you are given the concepts and vocab words, awesome. If you're not, go through yourself, through all the notes that you've taken over the semester or the marking period, go through each chapter and each concept that you learned, and look through your own notes, look through the textbook. Usually at the end of chapters in textbooks, they have like an overall review. Those are really great, especially when you're taking something as collective as a final. So kind of do your own work into it. Don't just be like, oh, it wasn't on the study guide. Oh well, I'm not going to need to know it, because you never know if you're going to need to know it. And if you didn't take notes during the semester, what are you doing? I make sure to take really good notes during the semester. I know a lot of people will just show up to class and didn't take their own notes. Like maybe they read the textbook, but they didn't take notes. But when I take the notes, I make sure I have all the information already kind of summarized. So when I go back during final season, I have all my thoughts already kind of collected. And if you're on a college level like me, at the beginning of every semester, your teacher gives you a syllabus. Go back through the syllabus and go through each week or each chapter and look at the main topics that you discussed. Maybe go back to the specific assignments that they assigned to you and review them. Go over the concepts and just kind of like backtrack through the semester so that you can remember all the things you did, because trying to remember things from the beginning of the semester is so hard. So you're going to kind of have to go back and do the manual labor that you did before. And basically whenever I'm giving a study guide, I just like to fill it out like it's the test itself. So if it asks me questions or asks me to discuss a certain topic, I literally write it all out as if I'm taking the test. I don't really just read it and kind of go over it in my head. When I write things out, or I maybe make a Word document and answer all the questions, put in all the vocab words, it really helps it settle in my brain, because you guys know this, writing things down helps you memorize it easier. So I physically like to answer the study guide and put in as much detail as possible. Even if I think the details aren't really necessary, at least I'll have them in the back of my mind, so if I do need to know them, I have them for the final. It's all about going the little extra inch and studying a little bit more than you want to. Like, I know you got a lot to do, you have a bunch of tests and things coming up, and you're tired, you're stressed, but if you just put in the little extra work, it's really going to show for your final. So that's my tips. That's personally how I like to study, and I actually have a paper right here given out by my college on good rules of studying for finals. So I'm going to go over them a little bit, so I'm just kind of disclaiming that this isn't my rules, but I kind of follow these anyway. And this is from my college, so I mean, I'm guessing that they're pretty good. So there's 10 rules here, and I'm just gonna kind of read through them and explain what they're saying, and I actually think they're all really good tips. Like, I use these a lot myself, so let's go. Number 1 is to use recall. So after you read a page, look away and recall the main ideas. Highlight only a little bit, highlight the things you think are very important, because if you go crazy with the highlighter, it's kind of going to defeat the purpose, because then everything is going to be highlighted. It's not going to differentiate what is important and what's not. Number 2 is to test yourself on everything all the time. Constantly be studying, flashcards all your friend. Like I said, I like to fill out the study guide and not just keep reading my answers and keep reading the study guide over. So just constantly be putting that information in your mind. Number 3 is to chunk your problems. Chunking is understanding and practicing with the problem solution so that it can come to mind in a flash. After you solve a problem, rehearse it. Make sure you solve it cold every step. Pretending it's a song and learning to play it over and over in your mind, so the information combines into one smooth chunk you can pull up whenever you want. So this is really good, especially if you're doing like a math final. If you have to learn a specific formula or something, just go through every single step. Just focus on the one formula instead of like overlooking all the formulas and you're like, okay, I got this. Like, stick with one, learn all the steps of it, make that into one little bit of information in your mind, and then move on to the next one. Number 4 is to space out your repetition. Spread out your learning in any subject a little every day, just like an athlete. Your brain is a muscle. It can only handle a limited amount of exercise on one subject at a time. This is another really good tip, because if you have ever sat there and tried to force all information into your brain in like a 3-hour time period, your brain just starts shutting down, and then after like the first hour, you're just reading, but nothing's going into your brain. So take a break. A good rule that they always say is like 15 minutes to every hour or something like that. I don't know. Figure out what break schedule works for you. Allow like 5 minutes to go on your phone, and then turn off your phone and get back to studying. So number 5 is to alternate different problem solving techniques. So this is more specifically for math. If you do the same problem over and over again, like say it's a specific formula, but you use the same numbers and you do the same problem over again, it's not really going to help after like the 3rd time. You've just memorized that problem. Go through, add in different numbers, add in different information, and solve the problem in different ways so that you're ready for any situation that can come. Number 6, take breaks. You know this, I already discussed this, but don't overrun your brain, because then it's just going to stop working and you're not going to be able to retain the information as you did when you're fresh off a break. Number 7 is to use explanatory questioning and simple analogies. Basically what this means is take the information that you're learning and pretend you're teaching it to a 1st grader. Like, pretend you're teaching however hard the subject is you're learning. You're explaining it to a small child or someone that has no concept of what you're talking about. Pretend you're explaining it to them and break it down into the simplest forms. This helps your own brain use analogies and compare simple things to the very hard subjects. So kind of subconsciously, you're memorizing it better. It works. I always go to like my dad or my dogs and I just sit there and I teach them what I know, even if they don't care at all, even if they have no idea what I'm talking about. I try to speak to them so that they sooner or later get a concept of what I'm learning, and then it helps me memorize the stuff that I'm talking about. Does that make sense? Number 8 is to focus. Get rid of all distractions. Turn off your phone. Block websites on your computer like Instagram. Well, do you even go on Instagram on your computer? Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, block all those websites for an hour or however long you're studying for. Tell your family to leave you alone and just focus on your studying. Number 9 is do the hardest things first. So like I was saying before, go through the concepts that you kind of already know, kind of push them aside so you can review them later, and focus on the things that you don't know that well so that you can get that information in your brain. The things you learn first and the things you want to learn last are going to stay in your brain the longest. So when you're first studying, do the hardest things. In the middle, review the things that you already pretty much know, and at the end, go over it all again, especially focusing on the hard things. And number 10, go back and review how much you learned from the beginning of your studies. Think about what you didn't know, and when you're done studying, even if you're not completely done, like if you studied for the day, look back, review at all the things you learned, and be proud of yourself, because studying takes a lot of mental work, and sometimes we just think of it as a chore. Kind of think of it as a privilege that you get to learn all these things, even if you're not super interested in them. Now you have all this information in your brain that maybe you can use one day. Alright guys, that is it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you got some good information out of this. Hopefully you're feeling a little bit better about the final season. I wish you all the best. I believe in you, and if you did like this video, make sure to give a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Comment below how many finals you have to take. I only had to take 2 this semester, which is like a blessing, but I know a lot of people have a lot more than that. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you have a wonderful day, and make sure that you stay tuned till next video.